Mr. Dominic Schinner, thank you for this interview and welcome to Korea.
Yeah, thank you. Always love coming to Korea.
So this is not your first time?
No, it's like a fourth or fifth time. First time was 2017.
17?
Yeah.
That's when ICO was blowing up.
Yeah, was it the Coin One offices back then? It was a pretty amazing experience.
So since then you've been coming frequently?
Came a lot more last year because we had a strong focus on other regions around the world. But now, because there's a strong support by the government, for one, there's also regulatory clarity, makes a lot more sense for us to be here and see what we can do.
Before we dive in, can you please maybe introduce shortly about yourself, which I'm sure a lot of people know about already, and shortly about what you do at IOTA and what IOTA is about.
I'm one of the founders of IOTA. We founded it in 2015, and I've been in crypto since 2011, so 15 years now.
Wow. You're like OG grandfather.
Yeah, I spent half my life in crypto. It's a long journey, but I'm as excited as ever because I really think that now we are actually fulfilling the vision and the purpose of blockchain. And so our goal with IOTA has always been to get it adopted in the real world. We started out with the Internet of Things and this machine economy, but now we really focus on trade and logistics. Like how do we digitize supply chain? How do we facilitate cross-border trade on IOTA and then also enable finance, payments, and build up this entire ecosystem on top of IOTA?
So as you said, you started as IoT and you shifted into bringing global trade on-chain. What led you to this major strategic shift?
Ultimately, everybody is trying to find product market fit because when you start out as a startup, as a company, you have certain ideas, certain visions of the future that might not be true. And for us, it was also this realization that IoT and certain use cases that we had in mobility and manufacturing, they just didn't find the adoption that we were hoping for. We realized 5 years ago already that it makes a lot of sense to start invest more heavily into trade because trade is one of the biggest ones in the world. Like a third of the global economy relies on trade. Every country is trading with each other. We're talking about trillions of dollars that get exported every year, $32 trillion. And cross-border trade is really one of those sectors where blockchain makes a lot of sense because you actually need to have an ability for countries to trust each other. There's no standard today, there's no digital protocol that actually makes it possible for countries to share data across the border or to share assets across the border. This is why trade today is still based on paper documents. So I always joke now, our biggest competitors are paper documents. Because when you're at the port, when you have your export certificates, declarations, you need to print it out and give it to the customs at the port. And so that's a very archaic system today. What we enable is we digitize all the data, we digitize all the trade documents, we put them on-chain, right, on IOTA, and then we make it very seamless for the customs, for the port authorities, for the banks and the exporters to share this data with each other and to get trust in that data. And so this is a very simple thing, but it's a very complex undertaking to actually get this adopted globally. And so this is why it took us 5 years to get to where we are today. And now we really focus on getting more and more countries to adopt our technology.
I'm very curious because crypto is almost synonymous to attention economy.
Right.
You know, so global trade is not an area that usually attracts mainstream attention. So during the preparation phase, the project was likely outside of major market trends or spotlight. What gave you the confidence in the need and long-term potential for this?
It is about having conviction. And the only way in which you will survive these crypto markets is through conviction. Right? I can tell you this, being part of every bull market, being part of every bear market, like every cycle, there was a new narrative, there was a new winner. IOTA was the big winner of the 2017 cycle. We were number 4 back then. And every project, every cycle, there's a new winner. There's a new narrative. Now, the problem is the real world does not work like that.
Sure.
The real world needs to have revenues. It needs to have clear adoption. It needs to have clear utility. And while the crypto markets have been driven by this speculative cycle, right, this attention economy, as you call it, is not sustainable. And so this is why for us, it was always about, hey, we need to build a real business out of IOTA, because that is the only way in which we will survive in the long term. That's the only thing that actually makes sense. And so this is why for us, it was very important to focus on building this trade business out of IOTA, because that is what we always perceived as the one thing that will actually be sustainable. And so now what we're focused on is really bringing all of this adoption on-chain so that it will use IOTA tokens, it will burn IOTA tokens as well. And so we really get this economy on top of IOTA going. This is real business.
Yeah, so I agree with you on the specialization, on the real economy and real income for the sustainable of the future business. As a blockchain specializing in the trade, global trade, what would you say is IOTA's core strength or distinguishing features compared to other networks out there?
Our partners are governments. Nobody else is actually able to work with governments in the same way that we are. You know, we've been on the market for 10 years and we really built up this credibility over the years where governments really trust us as a partner to digitize their supply chains, to work on new projects, large-scale projects, because we have this track record.
Yeah.
We started out as a non-profit foundation in Germany, specifically because we believe that that is the only way in which we are going to get governments to trust us. Governments are not going to work with a BVI company or a Cayman foundation. They really want to work with entities that they can trust. And this is why this non-profit foundation that we've established in Germany and in Switzerland are so important. And obviously, we have amazing partners on board, like the Tony Blair Institute, like the World Economic Forum, like Trademark Africa, Global Institute of Export, like all those partners that trust us, that work together with us to digitize global trade. And so I think this is really our USP in that sense as well. We also have an amazing technology stack. IOTA is one of the oldest layer ones right now without any technical debt, because we did a major overhaul last year where we completely replaced our layer 1 and we got a new move-based layer 1, very similar to SUI, on the network, fully decentralized, incredibly scalable and production ready. So the technology is there and the trust is there. And so obviously because we specialize and really focus on trade, there's no blockchain out there today that is actually competing with us. Our biggest competitors are Swift and more of these centralized companies that have been dominating for the last decades.
Okay. So in the past, you very well know there's been numerous attempts to introduce blockchain into the global trade through sort of industry-wide collaborations, and many failed. So in your view, what held those efforts back and how is it different now?
Yeah, all of these efforts, they were about keeping control. So many of these efforts, they were permissioned blockchains where a company worked with another company and basically set up this network and then try to get others to join their network. And the problem with that is there's conflict of interest, there is a trust issue, and there's a competitive issue. Like, why should I join my competitor's permissioned blockchain?
Yeah.
So back then, our biggest competitor was IBM and Maersk that built TradeLens. Now, TradeLens obviously failed because, again, it was a permissioned private blockchain. IOTA succeeded in trade because we're a non-profit foundation, because we're open source, and because IOTA is a permissionless network. We have this credible neutrality where governments and enterprises actually trust us more because we can prove that this is an open network that anybody can participate in, anybody can become a validator in this network, and it's not a consortium chain, but it's a public permissionless network. And that is really the main reason why Twin and our trade solution only succeeded because we are this non-profit foundation and because we are this permissionless public network.
Okay.
And this is also, by the way, why the IOTA token is really essential to this equation. We can only ensure this credible neutrality because of the token.
Makes sense. As you explained, IOTA is also known for working closely with very large public institutions on on-chain trade initiatives. Could you share some concrete examples that you're working on? I think some of them with collaborating with UK Cabinet Office, Kenya, and other governments. So what sort of tangible results have you seen from integrating blockchain into the real sort of trade infrastructure?
Yeah, we started this 5 years ago in Kenya by partnering with the government there and with Trademark Africa to connect 35 different government systems, right, like the export systems for the flower industry, for other industries, connecting them to IOTA so that the data is on-chain. Now, what we can do in Kenya is a trader, instead of printing out a physical piece of document, the port receives the data in a digital form on IOTA and can immediately verify the authenticity and the validity of the data. Now, what that enables is that instead of waiting 24 or 48 hours to get the physical document once the truck or the goods are at the port, they get it digitally immediately as soon as the truck arrives. So we are basically able to reduce the clearance time at the border from something that took days to hours or even minutes. It's a huge economic gain.
Yeah.
And so the World Economic Forum actually published a research recently where they said that our trade solution, Twin, can reduce cross-border costs by 25%.
Wow.
If you think about trillions of dollars that are being exported every year, talking about billions of dollars that can be saved through our solution. So the potential is really huge. Right? And that's just by digitizing data. The second thing that we're doing is obviously we're also doing trade finance. We've tokenized physical assets, for example, flowers or coffee beans or critical minerals, which is obviously a big hype and excitement right now around critical minerals. So we tokenize those physical assets, we put them on-chain, on the blockchain, and then we provide financing. Now imagine the way that the system works today, where a bank needs to approve a trader, it takes 3 to 4 weeks to go through the KYC process and verify it all, only to then be able to say if they can provide financing or not. We do it in a fully digital on-chain way. So once the goods are tokenized, somebody can actually provide the financing through stablecoins and use the assets as collateral to provide the financing.
Wow.
So it's collateral-backed financing. It's like being in a DeFi vault, right? Like Aave, you give your Ethereum tokens, you have 60%, 50% LTV, and then you can get the money. So it's asset-backed financing. We do the same with trade finance. So we're bringing these real-world assets on-chain to then provide the financing, and that's a huge, huge opportunity.
That's interesting.
And so this is why we're bringing these real yield, real assets on-chain that nobody else is doing today.
Oh, wow.
And we're doing that in Africa, we're doing that in the UK as well. So we've been doing pilots in the UK for the last 2 years. There was actually an announcement last week where we've really shown that this is now expanding across the UK. We've done around 5,000 shipments, which is actually a lot over the last 2 years. And now we are expanding it more. And now we're also expanding in Southeast Asia. And I'm very excited to be here in Korea as well.
So a little bit more about the government side. When working with the governments, I want to know what were the most important factors in earning their trust. Countries like South Korea, where trade is obviously a very big part of the economy and very highly digitalized.
Yeah.
How would you explain the value of moving trade on-chain?
Yeah.
How would you convince them?
Why do they trust us? Is because, first of all, as I said, we're a non-profit foundation. So we're not a for-profit company that is trying to increase shareholder value. We are a non-profit foundation that is trying to actually help digitize the world. And so that's why they trust us inherently more than an IBM or an Accenture, for-profit companies. Second thing is, everything that we do is open source, so they can actually utilize the technology without us. And so that's why they trust us a lot more. And we protect the data, so we don't take control over the data like a centralized cloud company, but we tell them that they always have sovereignty over their data. And so that's why they really inherently trust us. We also have amazing partners that validated this, right? Like the Tony Blair Institute, World Economic Forum, and others. Then really we're part of this story, and we're part of founding Twin. And other than that, we have a track record. We've been doing this for 10 years. And so this is why they trust us. And now we actually have governments approaching us because they know what we're doing in the market. And so there will be an announcement in the next couple of weeks that we have a new country on board in Southeast Asia. We start with a pilot on nuevo, then really starting to roll this out as well. Now to your other question around what is the benefit? We see ourselves as this global highway, right? So every country, especially Korea, is very advanced. It has one of the most advanced single window systems because trade is already digitized in Korea. But as soon as you leave the Korean border, you're no longer relying on a digital system, and the other country that you're trading with might not rely on the data that you have.
Yes.
So most often than not, even though the data is digital in Korea, you still need to print it out once you export with another country.
Okay.
And so this is where our system comes into play because we are the international highway for Korea. So we make it possible for Korean companies to export more efficiently with other countries, do it more cheaply, and then very importantly, also get better financing options. So this is where we are very excited to work with financial institutions here, together with the stablecoin providers and issuers to bring the Korean stablecoin on IOTA, on Twin, to enable cross-border payments and cross-border trade in a fully digital way and in an international way.
Wow, okay. Personally, when do you expect on-chain global trade to become more widely adopted in practice? At this point, where do you think we're at this overall long journey?
I really see that this will be a hockey stick growth because it took us 5 years to get into production in Kenya. We have 20 people on the ground in Kenya that are working with the government, that are going through this process of integrating the old government systems into the on-chain world on IOTA. And so it took a lot of time to go from there, from proof of concept to pilot. But now with each country that we're onboarding, it's going faster and faster and faster. So by the end of this year, we project that we're going to have 5 more countries that are joining our trade network. And we're going from thousands of transactions on the network to millions by the end of this year. So this is really our big goal right now, to really get millions of consignments of transactions on the mainnet, on IOTA, that are digital trade. So this is really the trajectory. And there's going to be network effects. With each country that we bring on board, they start talking with other countries on a governmental level. For example, the Kenyan Minister of Trade started to lobby other countries to connect to them because their pilot was so successful in Kenya. And so the more countries we bring on board, I think the faster the adoption will be.
My quick question, why Kenya?
Because first of all, it's already digital. Funny enough, Kenyan trade is more digital than many European countries. And so this is why we saw a great appetite for them to learn about this. And we had some amazing partners there with Trademark Africa, which is like an NGO focused on facilitating trade across Africa. And so those partners came on board and they really connected us with the government, and the government showed its willingness to trade. Trade is one of the most important areas of creating impact in the real world, right? I firmly believe that the work that we're doing with IOTA will actually increase global GDP. Digitizing trade will increase global GDP. That's a huge, huge opportunity.
Efficiency.
Yeah, efficiency, reduce costs, improve the financing. Kenya was the starting point, and now we're expanding it across Africa. So we had a partnership with the AFCFTA, the African Union, and we're doing the same in Europe, in Europe and the UK, and now also Southeast Asia.
Okay, so talk about finance, beyond trade. IOTA is also active in areas like tokenization of raw materials and other real-world assets. Are there any specific asset classes or use cases you're particularly focused on right now?
Everything around trade. So we do not touch equities, we do not touch treasury bills, bonds.
Real raw materials.
Yeah, exactly. We want the raw, hard stuff. So we really focus on critical minerals, we focus on commodities, we focus on the goods themselves, right? Like imagine a container full of goods, and we focus on trade receivables.
Trade receivables.
Yeah, so invoices. So that is the only assets that we are bringing on-chain. But those are assets that pay, for example, we're right now working on a vault system for trade finance that is going to launch on IOTA that makes it possible for investors, stablecoin holders, to get access to trade finance yield. So it's like paying between 8 to 15% yield, and it's real yield out of the real economy. And these are the assets, and this is the yield that we're bringing on-chain, and we're connecting that then with the liquidity, right, with the investors on IOTA. I want to have applications on IOTA that are only possible on IOTA because we have the data to prove the authenticity of the good, we have the identities of the traders, and most importantly, we have the assets that nobody else has.
From a token ecosystem and DeFi perspective, how do you see IOTA's current position in the market? Do you believe that IOTA can regain the early level of attention back in 2017 and 18?
I think it's very difficult for a project that succeeded in one cycle to win another cycle. This is why every cycle there was a new winner. What I can do and what we're really focused on is to really build a real business, sustainable business, so that the token economy on IOTA is actually going to be positive. There's going to be more tokens that will be burned because of all this network activity, and therefore there's more revenues on the protocol than on any other network. And through that, I really believe that IOTA will also regain its position in the market. So for us, IOTA is like AWS, and what we're doing with Twin is like Amazon. The application on top that drives the utility on the underlying infrastructure. I really firmly believe like even just 1% of global trade, if it is on-chain on IOTA, will produce around 650 to 1 billion transactions a year. So it's a huge amount of transaction volume that is going to happen on the network. So obviously my big goal is to position IOTA as the network that has real utility, real adoption. And then with that, hopefully the token will also regain its value.
So looking ahead in 2026, what's your top priorities or milestones that IOTA is aiming to achieve?
We are connecting more countries, right? Country by country, we are going to conquer the entire world. And that is really my big focus. That's why I'm so excited about IOTA. The countries are reaching out to us because they see the benefits and the utility that we're providing that nobody else can provide. And so that's why Korea is a very important and very exciting market for us, because we see a big opportunity here to be one of the partners to help digitize the economy and to actually help Korea be one of the leaders in blockchain adoption and the entire global blockchain markets. And so this is why my big focus for this year is to get more countries on board and get all of this activity on-chain on the mainnet. And then with that, get the entire token economy for IOTA going. And obviously the big focus is Twin, the Twin network that is building on top of IOTA, and how we're going to position that as the global solution for digital trade.
You've been part of the crypto industry for now over a decade, and looking back at a personal level, what was the most rewarding moment for you and maybe the most challenging?
Yeah, I mean, you know, crypto is such a crazy roller coaster, right? And there's so much stuff that happens that you can never predict. And I basically grew up with this.
Yes.
Right? Like I've been in crypto since I was 15.
Your teenage years.
Yeah. And so like I've been full-time in this industry ever since because I really believe in the potential in the technology itself. And without conviction, you will not survive this market. Right? It's too much crazy stuff happening. Like 2017 was a really crazy year for us, right? Because suddenly IOTA was at number 4, and there was obviously a lot of pressure for you as a founder because you also need to deliver. Yeah, it was like 2021 back then. Yeah. But it's also very rewarding because you really understand that you're on the right path. Yeah. So I'm very, very grateful for our community and all those that believe in us. And ultimately, instead of just seeing this as something to make money, we always saw it as something to actually change the world. And so we still firmly are on that track to actually change the world with IOTA. And this is why we have this perseverance and this endurance to survive through every bear market, every bull market, because we believe that we are going to have an impact in the real world with our technology, and everything else will follow based on that. So I think 2017 was obviously a crazy year with crazy ups and crazy downs. And since then it was about maturing as an individual for me, and also maturing as an organization, as a project, as a business. And so I think really right now is one of the most exciting times, because I really feel like it's coming together, and the real world adoption and the impact is actually happening. We speak with these traders on the ground, and they're so happy about the solutions that we're providing because they really understand that this can help them and their business succeed. And that's a huge thing that we can do.
Finally, there's been some really heavy market volatility last few weeks.
Yeah.
I think many new people in the crypto scene is going through what we felt or back in 2017 and a few others.
Right.
Is there any message you'd like to share with them, and especially in the Korean community?
I remember 2018 because there was really first big crash. Like the 2014 crash was painful for me back then, but 2018 was really the time where it felt like, hey, like this is it. Yeah. Is crypto dead for real this time? Because all the hope was gone and so on. And so it obviously took some time to recover, but it always comes back, right? And so, as I said, it's very important that people believe and understand what the technology can actually do in the real world. Because for me, blockchain is as important, and crypto is as important as the cloud was, and as AI is. So blockchain is really going to find this moment again. And so this is why we have to move away from this speculative bubble, from this attention market towards real utility. And so I think right now we're really going through this transition phase where the market needs to find its footing again, where all of these different AI agents, meme coins, and all of that stuff, it kind of destroyed crypto as a whole, because it was about getting rich quick. It wasn't about actually changing the world by solving real problems. So we need to go back to solving real problems. And so I think for crypto investors, it's always a very painful time, including for me. Like, I only hold IOTA tokens. I don't hold anything else.
You're one with IOTA.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you have to believe what you're doing. But I really believe that all of this will come back again. And so it is about having this conviction, and that will make you survive these bear markets as well. And ultimately, let's really focus on doing useful stuff for the world and not try and do these pump and dumps and crazy markets to real stuff.
I must agree with you, and also having stayed in here for now just reaching a decade, the ebbs and flows, I think narratives are dying away, and the real use, the utility are really coming out. IOTA was once very, very popular in Korea. It kind of went up and down.
Will be a lot more in the news for sure, and so including in mainstream media here in Korea as well. And so that's really our big focus on telling this story to the world, because it really resonates very well with the institutions. What we've seen in the last few days, there's so much excitement around IOTA, especially here now, because the institutions understand, hey, this is actually a real project with real utility. And so I'm going to be very excited to spend a lot more time here in Korea.
Thank you very much for your interview. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.